And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about Bono. Thank you for listening. Hello, Cleo.
Oh, hello, Richard.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. I mean, I'm a bit exhausted after reading this overlong book we had this week.
I know. It's painful on your arms.
Yeah, it's a big, heavy book. But I mean, the man has lived a life, hasn't he?
Yeah, he is, and he likes to tell you all about it.
Which I appreciate. Oh, by the way, the book
actually.
is by Bono, frontman of U2.
Yes.
What's it called?
Surrender, it's called.
Oh, yes, it's called Surrender. 40 Songs, 40 Stories.
Yeah, that's a lie if you count them up. 400 more like.
400. 40 songs, 400 stories.
Yeah, and the rest.
It's a beautifully written book, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I get thinking, well, sometimes people don't tell you enough. He has definitely told us loads. And if you're a U2 fan, you'd lap it up. You'd literally love every word of it because your hero is telling you his brain, is pouring out his soul to you. And it's quite lyrical. And it'd be like, it's like almost like, another song, isn't it, of his life?
Oh, it's beautifully written. And I can't help thinking, one of the downsides of doing this podcast is that we're reading like a book in a week.
Yeah.
And if I read this book for leisure over a longer period of time and kept going back to these stories, I would have I did love it and I was enthralled by it, but I felt under pressure to finish it.
Yeah.
And it's so big. But I just imagine if I was reading it in a normal way, oh my God, it's a brilliant book. It really is.
He is a lovely writer. And it does feel like he's tried to write a book, almost a novel.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be about you too.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of that. But that's him. That's the artist that the man is.
He's an artist,
he's a lyrical writer and he's got a really good grasp of the English language.
Yeah, and a lovely way of seeing things.
Yeah. Also, this literally almost, he's been everywhere and done everything and met everyone. So this book almost cross-references every autobiography we've read up to this point.
It does, actually.
Yeah, so many people come into it. I'm like, oh, I know this because I've read it from their point of view.
Yeah, another Band-Aid story as well.
Yes.
Getting through them.
But do you know what? It's just a real proper autobiography. And I love it when we find ones like this, even though they're long.
Yeah, it is.
And, he's done so much. Should we just get into it? Oh,
yeah,
no, hang on. I need to ask you, do you like U2? Do you like Bono?
Do you know what? I've spent time around musicians that absolutely hate U2, and I always thought, I don't know why they're so angry. And there's this they can't play music properly. They don't even have enough strings on the guitar. And I've heard these sort of rants about them.
Wow.
Yeah. And I always thought, I quite like a lot of the tunes. They're like classic pop tunes. But I only bought Discotheque and even better than The Real Thing, when they went a bit dancey, yeah. Their hits are epic. You can't avoid them. Didn't know a thing about Bono. Did not know a single thing about him. How about you?
I really like U2. I can't say I liked Bono so much, but I realise from reading a lot of these autobiographies, we get most of our information about these people through the mainstream media, and a lot of the time they put their own spin on it. I don't know why Bono people, he's always kind of been presented as this unlikable big head, really. And actually he even addresses that in this book about having to be arrogant, really, to be a rock star, and if you say you're not, you're kind of lying. It's an essential component.
Yeah.
So I found this book completely honest, and it turned me around. I think he's a really good bloke.
Yeah.
So actually, I love U2 musically. I think they're fantastic, and I think first and foremost, I think he's a brilliant singer. And I think he's a really good frontman. It's just the personality of that man away from the group, all of his white saviour stuff.
Yeah.
But after reading this book, it all makes sense. So
it does make sense. Yeah.
So I like him.
He's been vilified, and it's not fair.
So actually, his book that he wrote himself.
Yes. Has sold himself.
I like him now because I read his book that he wrote himself and put himself forward in a really good light, as an arrogant man would do. So anyway, let's get into it.
Right. All right then.
Bono. Not his real name.
Yeah. Paul David Hewson. Oh, yeah, they said, in fact, it's both a Protestant and a Catholic name. Being he was born in Dublin, but being Irish, it's of massive importance what religion you are. It really defines you, doesn't it?
He really goes into Irish history a lot in the first part of this book, but I think you can't escape it if you're born in Ireland, I mean, it just becomes part of your very fabric of being, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what I didn't realise is that a lot of Irish people don't like him for various reasons that we'll probably discuss in a minute. I thought Ireland were just very, very proud of U2 and Bono, and actually a lot of them really weren't.
No.
Because of the politics and the history and the religion.
Exactly.
Yeah, in a way that I think is hard for English people to understand, because we kind of have the North and South divide, but it's nothing compared to the Irish North. I mean, people get killed in Ireland and they don't in...
Well, yeah, absolutely. But we should understand, because it's all to do with us, because it's to do with British repression. Say British, English repression of the Irish. So we should know. And it's the Protestant versus the Catholic. And no, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on this, but he's from a mixed marriage. That's what he calls a mixed marriage, because that was unusual.
Yeah, and I'm sure like Romeo and Juliet.
I was just thinking of that.
No, because it's very real, and it's a threat that looms over daily life in Ireland.
Yeah, because one side kills the other, and vice versa.
Yeah. So, no, I get the importance of coming from a mixed marriage.
Me too. And then religious-wise... You know, he's sort of got one foot in each camp until he joins a cult.
Yeah.
But he's very, very Christian. I didn't know he was really, really religious. I should have.
No, I don't think you should. Well, he's a white saviour. He thinks he's Jesus Christ.
Oh, I see your point there. Well, this is why he gets caught up in so many causes.
He thinks he can save everyone because he's grown up with the intense Christianity, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's one way of looking at it. And the other way is that he feels like he has to do something because he is a Christian and trying to do good with his powers.
This is a part in the book, because it's quite near the beginning, and I still hadn't thought he was anything other than arrogant. But and then as I go through the book, I learn the reasons why. And then I think arrogant might be the wrong word for him, really.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely born out of this early life and the influence of religion and on this young man, definitely. Religion.
Plus, he was born in 1960, and it's right in the middle of the Troubles. So violence was in the air, it was in the street, it was everywhere. You know, and he says his dad had a temper, he has a temper, he's got anger issues. And him and his mates, they fight all the time. They actually physically beat each other up all the time. You go to school, you're going to fight. Everything's fighting. It's crazy. It's seriously violent. It's quite poor. He says they're rich. He said it felt like they were rich because his dad had bought a Hillman Imp. They were like the first people in their area to get a colour TV. Mm-hmm. So they were looked upon as rich.
Yeah.
They were, I know. They weren't particularly, were they? But I guess they weren't poor. They weren't scraping for food.
No, they lived in a normal house in a terrace.
They were just normal, yeah. I can't even remember what his dad did now. Can you?
No, I'm trying to think of what his dad did. But it wasn't a lofty
No,
career.
it's just a
I think he
normal
was
job.
Working class, yeah.
Yeah.
Bono looks like a fighter.
He does.
Actually, he looks like he would be. He looks like he would beat you up just for the fun of it.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, he's a thug, really.
Yeah,
it's weird because he looks like a thug, but actually he's really not. He's very caring.
He's a caring thug because he does genuinely beat a lot of people up. He does. He really does.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so yeah, he was at a fancy grammar school, St Patrick's Cathedral Grammar School, which was in the city centre of Dublin. He got kicked out when he was 12. This is brilliant. For lobbing...
Oh, it's disgusting.
For lobbing shit into a teacher's lunchbox. Because she went to the park every lunchtime and sat on a bench on her own. They just threw shit and managed to get some into her lunchbox. He got kicked out.
Oh, that's poor brilliant. Woman. I'm telling you what, she probably never ate a packed lunch again for the rest of her life. And she had to watch Bono rise to international stardom, thinking that's a little sod who threw shit into my lunchbox. So he got kicked out, right, for that?
Got kicked out, yeah. Which is better for him, I think, because he went to this other school.
Well, the school he was in before was like a strict boys' school, and then he got kicked out. So he went to a mainstream comprehensive where there's girls as well, so he liked that.
Yeah, that's good. His mum had taken him there and sat him down in the headmaster's office, and they said, we've got a really fine choir in this school. Would your son be interested to join? And his mother said, oh, Paul has no interest in singing. And he's like, hey? He absolutely loved music. He just said he's got music in him. He's got songs in him, always tunes in his head. He loved singing. His dad really loved singing. His dad was a tenor and he was really addicted to opera. And he was always singing. How does his mum miss that?
Well, he said that also that his dad wasn't that bothered about his singing,
No.
even though his dad was a really good singer himself.
Yeah. They both paid no attention to their son singing. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Don't know.
No, I think it's weirder that his dad, because his dad is obviously a singer, and I find it weird that his dad's not picking up that his son is a really good singer.
Yeah. It's like they had unfulfilled dreams, so they were still focusing on themselves. I don't know how young they were as parents. Their first son was 7 years older than Bono.
Norman.
Yeah, so they can't be that young.
That's true,
But
yeah.
it doesn't tell us too much about his parents, I'll be honest. He doesn't seem to remember a lot.
No.
He actually says he blanked it all out at a certain point.
Well, of course, because his poor mother, Iris, I mean, she died when Bono was 14.
Yeah. And really suddenly as well. It's 1974, and she just felt ill, got rushed to hospital, and 3 days later she died, and it was a brain aneurysm. And it turns out that both her sisters died of that as well.
It's devastating.
And do you know what? It occurred to me, I wonder if even deep down subconsciously, it makes you think you might die. You know, if you can just suddenly die, which could account for his insane energy that all these people seem to have, that where it's never enough, you never stop.
Yeah.
You know, you wonder if it's a deep down thing.
I think he had that anyway.
Yeah.
I think he had the energy anyway, because he sounds like a little tearaway.
Yeah.
But I think his mum dying was the catalyst for him
to go.
I mean, it changed his
stratospheric.
life entirely, and it changed his dad, and it changed his
everything.
brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it
Yeah.
would. It's devastating. All of a sudden, your mum's gone. And then he actually says, in that Irish machismo way, they didn't really talk about his mother after she died. And he said, worse than that, we didn't really even think about her.
Yeah.
So that's a level of grief. They didn't deal with that grief. Because like you say, it was such a shock. It's just a matter of days. She was no longer there. And so that's such a shock to all of them that they're basically blocking it out, the three of them.
Yeah.
But that also creates a lot of anger. So instead of pulling together, they started on at each other. Oh, it's awful. I hated reading this.
It is.
Poor
It
man.
is. And, you know, he's only pulled the odd memory out of his brain through a bit of therapy in later life. And it's interesting. He's got about 3 stories that he can remember of his mum. He can't remember anything about it. He's blanked it all out. But that thing about her saying he has no interest in singing is one of the things that stuck.
Yeah, right.
He must have been really shocked
Yeah.
to hear his mum's so disconnected with him. He formed that sort of same as Madonna, that when your mum forms this like worshipful status where they just become an iconic thing. And, you know, it's all about Iris, and he's written songs for her. He's still singing to her, he says, in most of his gigs. He's named his kids, have got her name in. She's just become a hero. But she didn't even notice her son liked singing. So if she'd have lived, she'd have just been a normal mum. Although it does sound nice. They laughed a lot. He said they laughed all the time, his mum and dad. And they were really in love.
Well, they would have had to have been if they came from opposing sides.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, because their families probably never spoke to them again. He actually never mentions grandparents.
Yeah, you don't do that for somebody that you just casually fancy. You do that because you've met your soulmate and you can't live without them.
That is true.
They have to be worth it, yeah. He also says that his dad, Bob, you know, who is just a working class man, he was really into, like you say, opera, but not just that. He's also into classical music, and he read Shakespeare, he painted, he acted.
Yeah.
Like he was a real artist
an
coming
artist,
from working class Ireland. And he said that wasn't just unusual, but it was like almost unique for a man to be like that. So that's Bono's dad. So that's interesting as well.
Yeah.
That he had that father figure.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually a great role model. It's as soon as his mum died, he was absolutely furious with his dad for reasons he doesn't even know. Until it does mention later in the book, after his dad died and he had therapy, that this one really harsh therapist went, "You owe your dad a massive apology because you had the courage to live his dreams and yet you were angry with him." You know, and I was like, yeah, that is true.
Aww.
Why would you be angry? But there's no explanation for it. He just was. And that's how he was. He said the home was now a house.
Yeah, it's so awful. The 14-year-old boy, And one day you're just living this carefree life with your mum and dad at home and you're being a bit of a scallywag around town and you've got this older brother. Then all of a sudden your mum's gone. And all of a sudden you and your brother and your dad are all angry. You're not talking about your mum and you're taking it all out on each other. I mean, it just completely changed everything.
Yeah. It's a sort of picture he paints, and he does paint it, doesn't he? It's like really disparate. They all come in at different times. They go to their rooms. They just get tin food and mashed potatoes. And he's spending all the grocery money on albums and stealing food. And in fact, I think his brother saves him with food because he gets a job at Dublin Airport. And he starts bringing home the leftover airline food. So they start there eating those airline food dishes. And then he goes to school and they make this big announcement. We've got a new caterer for school dinners. And it's the airline. He's having airline dinners. And then he becomes a famous pop star and he's eating airline food. He's sick of it. I was going to say, the same year his mum died is the year that Dublin got blown up. You know, when he was a kid, he should have been in the record shop. But because it was raining, he'd cycled or something like that. Anyway, he wasn't there where he should have been and he would have blown up. It was a coordinated attack in May 1974. And his mate, Guji's brother, was in the van. And he just saw all the bodies, you know, all the dead. And he said that Guji's brother was, by 20, a homeless heroin addict. You know, he'd seen too much. That's the island he was a kid in. We mustn't forget that because it's all around.
Wow.
It's in the air.
Yeah, seeing it.
Definitely influences.
Did you read it as Guji? Because I read it as Guggy.
Did you?
Yeah.
Could be either.
So Guggy is Derek, who is Bono's childhood friend, right?
Yeah, best mate.
And actually, he is the man who called him Bono.
Yeah.
Because Guji, made up names for everyone.
Yeah, they all had nicknames.
Like, he never called people by their real name. They all had funny. Yeah. They're actually really cool.
They're really good names.
So he called him Bono Vox of O'Connell Street.
Yeah.
And it's absolute pure coincidence, because I always knew, like from reading smash hits and stuff, that Bono's full name, as it were, was Bono Vox. And that translates as strong voice.
Good voice, yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought he got that nickname because he was a really good singer, but actually it's just complete coincidence.
Bono Vox was the name of a hearing aid shop in Dublin, and he just liked the sound of it.
So Bono is named
after a
hearing aid shop. That's hilarious.
It's quite brave of him to write that down, I thought.
Although he did say that before he called him Bono Vox for a short period, he was calling him Steinvik von Heischen. Imagine if he didn't upgrade to Bono, you two could be led by Steinvik von Heischen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how Bono got his name.
Yeah, amazing.
By the way, Guji, Derek, was he in the Virgin Prunes? He was, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was like 2 bands were formed, he says. Do you know, I'm just going to throw this in. I love how connected he still is to his community. You know, it's not like he became a pop star and just left everything. He still lives in Ireland. He never left, really, and he still loves his friends. And it's just such a massive community. They all knew each other's parents. They all looked after each other. And yeah, the Virgin Prunes was the other band that formed that was sort of more punk than U2 and didn't become rich. But it's just, isn't there? This sense of community runs right through this entire book.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, David Bowie's visiting him in his Docksiders pub and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The world's Pavarotti comes to his little town.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he's got strong roots, hasn't he?
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. It's nice.
So U2 came about because the drummer, Larry Mullen, put a sign up on the notice board at school.
Yeah.
That said, drummer seeks musicians to form a band.
Yeah.
And then he had rehearsals, auditions, in his kitchen. And a few people turned up, 3 of which were Adam Clayton, David Evans, otherwise known as The Edge, and Bono Vox.
The Edge, Bono and Adam Clayton, actual legends to this day.
All went to that first audition in Larry Mullen's kitchen.
It's incredible.
Isn't it?
Plus, drummer never seeks musicians. Musicians always seek drummer.
Seek a
It's all the
drummer.
wrong way around.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah, it's really weird that the planets collided on that day, for sure.
Yeah, they were all there. And Adam and The Edge were kind of like proper childhood friends, right? Like Bananarama were.
Yeah.
I think they knew each other since they were proper kids. And then obviously Bono moved to this new school. See, if Bono had never thrown shit into that teacher's lunchbox, he wouldn't have moved to this new school.
That's
and
true.
these 4 people would not have been in the kitchen at that time. So that was a life-defining moment for that young man.
A life-defining lob. If he'd missed, she'd never have known.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Adam Clayton was the only one who was different. He's from an English family. They'd moved to Ireland when he was 5, but I don't think you'll ever not be English if you're not born in Ireland, I'm guessing. And he was posh. They thought he was posh and he had manners. And his dad was a pilot, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So he was the only one who was different. And he was the only one who was an atheist. So that really divided him at certain times. They were all pretty joined at the hip except him. But hey, they're all still together. They're all still together.
This is what blows my mind, that this band, from these teenagers in this kitchen...
For 50 years, almost 50 years.
Wow, 50 years are still together.
Next year, that'll be 50 years. I'm sure they'll do a big 50th tour.
Wow.
Because they're still playing, still getting albums out. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, they've managed to stay... Not cool, what's the word? They've managed to stay...
Relevant?
They haven't fizzled off into being a bit past it and redundant. Do you know what I mean? They keep going.
No, they actually haven't.
Yeah. They haven't gone past the boiling point yet, which so many bands do when they've been together 50. I mean, how many bands actually last 50 years?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Anyway.
It's actually astounding to me that it's 50. It just does this.
I mean, who else is there? The Rolling Stones?
There's not many.
Is that it?
I don't know. Duran Duran's still going.
They are, but they're not the original lineup.
Hey, yes, they are. Yeah, they're all
maybe they've got back together now, but they went a long time without being the original lineup.
Anyway, they made it.
Yeah.
So this is what I didn't know. Now I think back to all my musician mates slagging them off, saying they can't play properly. They never could. They admit it. They weren't great. Like Bono's older brother, had just taught him a bit of guitar, but they just had a go because they had the punk ethic. Their heroes were punk.
Well, that's the era we're in here.
Yeah, and so people slagging them off for not playing. It isn't the point. They had songs in their head, and in fact they said they had to write their own material because they couldn't play covers well enough.
Right.
Because they weren't good enough. So they had to play their own stuff.
Do you know what? I wonder if a key to their longevity is, because I've been watching a lot of videos this week as I've been reading this book. The one thing I've realised, which I kind of guess I knew, right, Bono is a really good frontman, right? He's a fantastic singer.
Yeah,
he's charismatic. But I tell you what, each of those other 3 men also are really charismatic,
they are
brilliant musicians. Like any one of them could front that band.
Yeah.
They just have the confidence and arrogance of a rock band. So it's almost like a supergroup of 4 really brilliant, charismatic musicians. Whereas I think a lot of other bands which don't last as long, I think have a really good person at the front, maybe one other person. And then I think the other people maybe make a couple £1 million and they want to go and retire somewhere. Whereas U2 is 4 focused, career-driven, brilliant musicians, and I think that's why they keep going. It's all of them. It's not just a guy at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely times where they've really struggled to keep going, by his accounts.
Yeah.
Because they've pulled at different ways.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, because when they got signed... Oh, no, we'll have to get to that. All right, so...
So they've just met in a kitchen.
yeah, they got together. So, yeah, they're named after a spy plane. U2 is a spy plane, if anybody didn't know that. They were gigging and they got a bit of a following locally. But they needed a van. So they got this manager called Paul Guinness. And he came from the film industry. And he was pretty together. He had food in his fridge. That really impressed them. And, but he said, no, you're not ready. They were going to take stuff to London, get people interested. He was going, you're not ready. So Bono and Ali, Ali is his wife. Okay, Ali and Bono met at school when they were 14, but they really got together when he was 16, about 2 weeks after his mum died. They properly became a couple, and they're still a couple to this day. It's a really amazing, united marriage. He talks about her so much.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
We know all about her now. She's her own person with her own story.
I loved finding out about her. I really did.
Yeah, she grew as much as him.
Yeah, and like U2 aside, like the rock band aside, everything else he does going to all these countries and being a white saviour. She's with him for most of it, a lot of it, until they have children, but that's obviously a different thing. But she's really there, she's really present, and she goes everywhere with him, which is probably why they've lasted so long as well, you know.
I'm sure it is. Then she went to university, then she became a pilot. You know, she's an activist. She believes in the same things as him. They're like comrades, you know. It's pretty cool. And yeah, like in the book, on the inside cover is him, and on the back page it's her. It's like, this is the team. And because he says when they got this contract together with this bloke Paul, they ended up settling on Paul getting 20% and all the other 4 get 20%. So there's 5 in the band. He always says this, I'm 1 quarter of a band, 1/5 of that management scheme, and 1/2 of a couple. You know, that's his life. Those are his people. It's really important to him.
And also that Paul McGuinness stayed with them also for the longest time, like 35, 40 years. And I think that's because they had this arrangement. Everybody was an equal. And he said, like, it wasn't easy and stuff, but they just always work stuff out and they've stayed together. And I think because they accepted the manager as part of the band, because, of course, he's on the tour bus, he's everywhere with them.
Everywhere, yeah. And they reckon that he probably didn't want to get a van because he didn't want to be the van driver. So he sort of actually waited until they got a deal that meant they could get enough money to get the van and the driver. Yeah, so what they did is Bono and Ali, and they were literally about 16, 17. They went to themselves to London from Ireland, which was a big adventure by all accounts. I think they spent a night sleeping in a phone box or whatever. And they went to the A&R people in London and gave the tapes and like waltzed in with all the attitude going, yeah, we're in this band, you two, you know, listen to this. We'll be back in an hour to talk to you. We've got to get back to Ireland. So, you know, he gave it all the attitude and it worked. It was for the magazines, the music press. They listened and they wrote articles about the band. And that's what got a buzz created.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah.
They did it themselves.
I love that. I've read other people that just did that. It makes it sound so easy in a way that all you had to do in the 80s was just walk into a record company and say, here's my tape, we're a really good rock band. And then you kind of, it's the first step of success. Yeah. I'm so impressed by that.
But they're the only ones you're reading about. Imagine how many people did it, but they didn't have the right swagger.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and they didn't. You have to have been good and you have to have had the right attitude, I reckon.
Do you?
I reckon loads of people would have done it and got nowhere.
Yeah.
But it worked for them. Yeah. Do you know what? I love this. After this bloke Paul had put this contract together, they went next door to a cafe to discuss it. And they were saying, I don't think we should sign. And Louis Walsh overheard them in a cafe. And Louis Walsh, who put Boyzone and Westlife together, X Factor, like the biggest music mogul from Ireland that I could name. You know, yeah, I've heard young U2 having a chat in a cafe and went, it'll be the biggest mistake of your life if you don't sign with that bloke. He knows what he's doing. So actually he helped to form U2 as we know them. That's bizarre, isn't it? Anyway, once they signed with Paul, he got some London gigs and every single label who came to see him said no. It was a total failure, but the press was good. So when they got back to Ireland, feeling like they'd failed and they're going nowhere, somebody suggested to them, why don't you play the National Stadium? Like, fake it to make it. They don't know you failed, so you go and you announce that you're going to play the National Stadium, returning from this triumphant tour of London, and just sell it as, you know, just hype it. And that's what they did. It's genius. So they said, 375 people turned up, which was obviously massive, but it didn't fill the place, but it's big enough. But one A&R man came. He was from Island Records. He flew from London to see him and signed them to Island Records in 1980, and that's what did it.
Yeah.
Fake it to make it. It's genius.
Signed them there and then.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I mean, they must have been good.
They were good. Do you know what? They actually, before they even met Paul, they ended up on this Irish TV show called Young Line. The clip is on YouTube. It's like 1978. And they look so young because they are about 17.
Oh.
It's a bit punky. Do you know what? It is obviously like the early nucleus of U2. They're great.
Are they?
They're great. And it's not just they you know, the way they stand and the swagger they have. And yeah, you can see actually that's the beginning of a really brilliant band.
Excellent.
So
Yeah.
I can see, they went to London to do this tour and nobody wanted them. Then all of a sudden, they come back and they do this gig. It blows my mind in a way. If this guy from Island Records comes over and signs them on the spot, why were they passed up so many times in London?
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Maybe they weren't so great on those nights. Maybe that was like a warm-up to the big gig. And then because they played all those gigs in London,
what happened.
They actually learnt a lot. They got tighter and then they come back to play this arena and then they're great.
Yeah, exactly. They're saying that it was a massive gig in this National Stadium, which was actually a boxing ring. There's 375 people there, right? Those gigs in London would have been more like 50 to 100. They're stadium rockers. Maybe they're too big for the small room. They have to be big. Because they've been big ever since. They've played stadiums almost ever since. They've never done an MTV Unplugged, They're like a big band, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe it just suited them and they could see the potential.
So they get signed by Island Records.
Boom. And they make a first album called Boy. I've been listening to that. It's great. It's classic U2.
Yeah.
Can't believe I missed it. It's really good. Yeah. So it's 1980. Oh, I guess he's 20-ish, 19, 20 by then. Yeah, they've been going a while. They got a residency at the Marquee Club in London, which is now a Wetherspoons pub. But you can still go in there.
Every Monday night. And he said the first Monday night it was half empty. By the second it was full. And by the third there was a queue around the block.
Yeah, and mayhem.
I think Blondie did it that way, didn't they? Didn't they have one of the clubs in New York and they just got a residency? And then 3 weeks later they were really like a must-see band.
Yes, that might have been CBGB's, in fact.
Yeah, I think it might be on Max's Kansas City or one of those things.
Yeah, but that's a way to do it, build up a crowd.
Yeah, and so quickly. So that shows you, Blondie are brilliant, U2 are brilliant. It happened very quickly once they got a residency at the Marquee Club, yeah.
Yeah, then they got an American tour. Yeah, so at this point, right when they're about to take off, that cult Christian group, it's called the Shalom Group, they really were a bit cultish. They tried to recruit U2 minus Adam Clayton and literally seriously got them all sat round and said, you've got to give it all up. It's the devil's work. You've got to come and do righteous things with us. And they all went off and went, that's right, we do. We're giving up the band, all except Adam Clayton. He was like, no. Yeah, they did it. So then they went to Paul, the manager, and said, we're seriously giving up to be Christians to do something in the world for good. And he went, yeah, well, that's really nice, but you signed contracts. I'll sue you. And they went, oh, shit. Right. So that's actually the point where they went, well, in that case, we'll become a band, but we'll try to do some good with the power that will bring us. And that's the birth of them both doing music and righteous things, basically. That was the sort of compromise with the devil they made. I
love that Paul came and said you signed a contract, because the people in that church would have said to them, you've just made a deal with the devil. You signed a contract to rock and roll.
Yeah.
But actually...
They signed an actual contract.
Yeah, it's like...
It's a legally binding contract with the devil. Yeah. It's the right choice.
So off they went.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And like you say, he's done so much through his success with U2. I mean, he hasn't taken any of that for granted. He's used it as much as he can to help poverty-stricken nations and stuff,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he could not have done more.
He is a modern-day Jesus Christ, isn't he?
I guess he is, but with a lot more access to the world.
And less hair.
Doesn't have to walk everywhere. So he can get a lot more done.
Yeah.
Yeah, less hair.
And shit sunglasses.
So, right, I'd like to throw this in, right?
Yeah.
They got married, Bono and Ali, in 1982, and they went to Chris Blackwell's house in Jamaica. Chris Blackwell, he's the head of Island Records, isn't he? He's based out in Jamaica.
Yeah, and he's really cropped up in these books a lot.
All the time, I know, because, Grace Jones as well really could make. But they stayed in his house in Jamaica. Right, and this is just the most interesting fact that I can't get rid of. Right, every time I see a BMW now, Bob Marley only drove BMWs because the initials BMW, he said, stands for Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Oh, get that. Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. So customised number plates, as it were. Can't see in the same way ever again. Anyway, so Edge decided to contribute to the doing some good with music by writing Sunday Bloody Sunday that early on.
Yeah, which comes from being in Jamaica and the spirit of like Bob Marley. It's interesting because so many, as we know, because of other books we've read, people go and stay on that. It's Goldeneye, isn't it? It's where Ian Fleming wrote James Bond.
Yeah.
And Chris Blackwell's house, lots of people go and stay there. And I think it informs their art.
Yeah.
Because Bono said the room where The Edge wrote Sunday Bloody Sunday and they worked on it, he says that's the same room that Sting wrote Every Breath You Take and King of Pain.
Yeah.
But it's taking people out of their environment.
Yeah, that's right.
And taking them somewhere else. And it's really informing music from the UK and Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if people just go there because it's a nice place to be initially, because it's warm and it's going to be nice, and then and then
it changes their life.
Oh yeah,
I bet. Yeah. Oh yeah. So by then, I mean, oh my God, they were bashing out the albums. Boy came out in 1980, October in 1981. The third album was a live EP called Under the Blood Red Sky that had Sunday Bloody Sunday on it. But yeah, it caused division at home because obviously it's about a massacre with the British Army in 1972, which isn't really not long ago. It's like, it's pretty fresh. And the British Army fired on peaceful protesters in Northern Ireland, and 14 were dead, 28 shot. And of course, they're just bringing that up, and it's still raw, and it really divided up their fans.
Didn't it? I mean, it turned some of their fans against them.
Yeah, like death threats, sort of. What they were doing is they were ripping up the Irish flag on stage. Ripping off the green, ripping off the orange, and waving the white.
Yeah, well, I get that.
To mean non-violence, to mean peace.
I mean, I think there are other ways.
But that was misinterpreted by a lot of people as ripping up the Irish flag and being anti-Ireland.
Yeah, you don't rip up any flag. I think it's asking for trouble ripping up any flag.
I do too. That's a really confusing message. Yeah, just wave a white flag. Don't rip up the Irish flag.
They're young. Bono's very passionate, and he has said at times that that's actually got him into trouble with the rest of the band.
Yeah.
During concerts and stuff, he would like climb up the rigging and stuff or throw the drums into the audience, and the band stand back a bit and say, what the heck are you doing? But that's, Bono is the boy, the man. He is a bit of a tearaway scallywag,
He is.
I think he still is. I think that it works in his favour most of the time, and he channels his energy for the greater good. But also, I think he's a bit of an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah, but I think ripping up the Irish flag, I get why that upset the audience, of course.
Yeah, he's open to misinterpretation. And also, because U2 became massive in America as well, because they were so pacifist, it cost the IRA a lot of funding from America.
Yeah.
Then, so that actually really changed. They changed politics in that way. So, yeah, you're going to make enemies.
Yeah, well, I mean, then they're under threat as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because, people are being kidnapped and tortured for ransom.
Oh,
and if U2 are all of a sudden coming out on a world stage and making money, then they're actually a really good target.
Yeah.
But not least U2, but actually like their wives and stuff,
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, exactly.
They're playing with fire, but they're doing it for kind of what they perceive as all the right reasons.
Yeah.
It's politics, it's history, it's religion, it's everything. Being Irish is just such a, unique experience, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and all the Irish artists that I love, like Sinead O'Connor and now CMAT, this new, their Irishness definitely informs not just their art, but what they talk about when they're interviewed and stuff. Yeah, they're so patriotic, but they're then seen as not patriotic by other Irish people because it's such a complicated history,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. But worrying for them when they're being targeted and stuff, yeah. But I guess just don't rip up the flag and you might be all right.
I know. It's an interesting choice. Anyway, 1983, they get Brian Eno in.
Amazing. Look, this is Roxy Music again.
Yeah. Roxy Music influencing people again because they love Roxy Music. They're Bowie influenced. They keep saying they're Bowie influenced, but I can't hear it. I just only hear U2.
In U2?
Yeah.
Maybe in some of their later stuff. I actually think, I just mentioned their first appearance on TV.
Yeah.
I really got that it was almost like the tail end of glam rock and the postures and stuff. And then I thought, actually, no, it's not. It's David Bowie, who was around the same time as glam rock and had elements of it. And so I kind of did think, oh, you two are influenced by Bowie. But no, I think you're right. I think all of that, those big 80s albums, there isn't a straight line between them and Bowie. But I think some of the later stuff actually is quite Bowie-esque.
Right. There's a point where Bowie was visiting Ireland and he comes to visit them in the studio and they played him their new album and they said it's kind of embarrassing because it was ripping him off so much and they knew it and he knew it, but nobody mentioned it. So I still can't really hear it, but if they said that, then that must be true.
Yeah. Is that also the time when David Bowie stayed in their house? And their manager said to them, oh, if you wake up in the middle of the night and David stood at the end of your bed, don't worry, he just does stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
No, it would be horrible.
Do you think so?
Oh my God, what, waking up in the middle of the night and finding David Bowie standing at the end of your bed? You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Of course. Anyway, 1983, Brian Eno comes along. Yeah, so he's the producer and he's with them for the rest of all time, I think. I think he never leaves them. And so, therefore, unbeknownst to us, there's a marriage between Roxy Music and U2. Everything you hear from then on is got Brian Eno in it. He's the fifth member of the band.
One thing I haven't done yet after reading all these books and realising how influential Roxy Music... When I like Roxy Music, I need to go back and listen to their early albums because I haven't. I bet they're amazing.
I think you're right. Or you need to find Brian Eno's autobiography or
Brian Ferry.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah.
The other one.
How many bloody Brians in one band? yeah, so Band Aid happens as well. He goes, I got the troubling lyric tonight, thank God it's them instead of you.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Much has been made of Bono's line in Band Aid because it doesn't sound very charitable. But I kind of get it. And plus it was written in a day.
I get the point.
I mean, thank God it is them and not you.
Yeah. No, I get the point of it. Anyway, so that happened. Then Wembley Live Aid happened. Doesn't say much about it.
That was really, I think everyone at this point knew who U2 were. They'd had a couple of smaller hits like New Year's Day, Pride, classics really now. But at the time, they were still kind of an up-and-coming band with a bit of success. When they were put on that global stage, Live Aid, I think that's what kind of started them onto the next level of their career.
Agreed.
Because that was a brilliant performance. Or Bono says it was overshadowed because he was having a bad hair day. And when I look at Bono, I kind of think it never occurred to me that he even cared about his hair because it looks like every day is a bad hair day.
Yeah, exactly. How can you be more specific? Yeah.
But he didn't like his hair on the day of Live Aid.
No. Yeah, so you've got to feel good about yourself, haven't you?
That was a brilliant performance.
I think you're right. And then, of course, they start writing massive bangers. Yeah, because the Edge is really into the new dance music at the time in mid-80s. And so Streets Have No Name, it's got more of a rhythm. I really like that. I can't not like that song. They're really classic tunes at that point.
I just think, I don't know if other people feel this same way, right? I love U2's music. I love a lot of the early stuff. Arguably their most famous album with their most famous tunes, Where the Streets Have No Name, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, and With or Without You. I don't like them. I think they're boring.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and I love lots of other U2 stuff, but I don't listen to that album. I think they're really, really pedestrian in a way. They don't really go anywhere.
They've got their own sound that is only theirs.
I love, and I think this is how, again, another key to their longevity. They do evolve, they do adapt, like Bowie did, like Madonna does. They embrace new technology, and the music changes with them. And I think that is for artists in the same band. You know what? If they stayed in Ireland and they rehearsed in the same place and they didn't go out and have these life-changing experiences, they wouldn't have been together so long because the music would have stayed the same and they would have stagnated. But actually, they're constantly evolving.
That is true. Even when they don't all want to necessarily, they do. They still do it.
Yeah. They do. Yeah.
I love that they said that With or Without You was totally abandoned. They threw it away. It wasn't working. And then their mate Gavin Friday comes along and goes, no, that's a good song. Get it out the bin. He said the problem is it peaks too soon. It needs more build. And then you can hear it, can't you, With or Without You? It builds for ages.
Yeah, it's boring.
And it's perfect. But you can't imagine them throwing that song away. It's crazy.
I can.
You can. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty classic. The next album, that was 87, The Joshua Tree. Oh my God, it won a Grammy for Best Album of the Year. It beat Michael Jackson Bad.
Produced by Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's massive.
Isn't it? No, I've always thought that Thriller was better than Bad.
It is.
I think Joshua Tree. Oh, what's a Grammy anyway? It's just awards.
Well, yeah, right.
Record companies buy them for their acts. It's no big deal.
Which sold more?
What did sell more?
Bad.
No, I don't know. Joshua Tree was a world-conquering album.
Yeah, huge.
It'd be interesting
Huge.
to find out which sold the most.
It would. That and Rattle and Hum, which came along in 1988, are sort of like everyone had it on their shelves. Everyone had a copy.
No, you see, Rattle and Hum is my favourite, whereas the album before, Joshua Tree, which I condemned as boring, sorry everyone, Rattle and Hum is just full of such energy and authenticity and root. Did they record most of that live? Because it's exciting, whereas I thought the album before wasn't. Yeah,
yeah, Desire. You can hear it. Ding, 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 ding. Straight away, you're in. It's brilliant. Angels of Harlem.
Yeah.
When Love Comes to Town.
With B.B. King.
All I Want Is You. Yeah, they're really good tunes.
Yeah. And also, like you would say, like All I Want Is You, right, is kind of like of a similar vibe to With or Without You. And whereas I think With or Without You is boring, All I Want Is You is so melodic. It's so... I love it. Yeah, I like you too.
Yeah.
I just don't like some of the songs.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And then 1991, by the time they actually released Achtung Baby, that's The Fly. It's no secret. That's a great tune. Mysterious Ways, amazing. What else was on that?
One,
which
I think is kind of possibly U2's finest moment. They have quite a few finest moments, let's be honest. But One is a particularly good song.
Yeah, it really is. Even better than The Real Thing. That's what got me, because it had that real... I think they must have done a dance mix. Oh, yeah, they actually said they did their own dance mixes. They didn't employ someone else to do it.
Yeah.
They did their own 12 inches and stuff. That's a cracking... So that was really playing in the clubs, even better than The Real Thing. So they managed to get into that world and cross over.
Yeah.
And keep the young people interested. Very clever.
But authentically, it is clever, but it just felt real with U2. I think other bands try and do it, and it's inauthentic. But I think because like The Edge and Adam Clay, all of them have interest in evolving musical styles, and they adapt it, and kind of, it's like they create the song with that rather than subverting the song later. And I think that's a lot of the trouble that other bands get into.
Yeah, that's true.
They try and distort what they do, whereas I think U2 create what they do through a different sound from the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that trying to create that sound is what nearly broke them up. It was 1990, they went to Berlin. They were all pulling each other in different ways. And like Bono was saying, yeah, we've got to embrace all the new technology and do dance music. But they were like, yeah, but we're a band. We want to play our instruments, but we've got to evolve. And Bono admits that he was pushing them to evolve into electronic stuff. But they were all saying, we can still do that, but we're a band. And they really nearly broke up. He said it's the closest they ever came. They were arguing all the time. And then that's when they wrote One. Because he said it's a song they needed to hear, because they were just one. It only worked when they all came together.
We're not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a love song. It's a love song for the band. And it brought them
I really like how Bono completely knows himself inside out, and he says things like he doesn't necessarily like being on his own, and he knows he has this talent, but he doesn't have this talent were it not for these three other people.
Yeah.
And he also says about his wife, he says, I am just half a person without Ali.
Yeah.
And actually he wrote this song called One, but actually it's all about being together. And he says that he can only succeed through collaboration. He comes up with these ideas, but they go to the next level when he works with other people. Do you know what? He talks about artistry a lot in this book. And I really appreciated him kind of deconstructing how he approaches his art. And lots of artists, writers, musicians, painters, you think of it as this kind of solitary pursuit. But Bono is very much the opposite of that. Like his artistry comes from collaboration. Very interesting to read about. Loved it.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, he waxes lyrical about it.
Doesn't he?
Yeah, and like we got to know his wife, we actually get to know the individual characters of everyone in his band, and and all his schoolmates, everybody. You get to know everybody.
Oh, his daughters. Do you know his daughter, Eve Hewson?
What? I looked her up, and she's in loads of stuff. An actress.
She's in loads of shit stuff, but she saves it because she's so charismatic.
Oh, wow.
Like, she's in these, these kind of like Netflix dramas made to order.
Yeah, have a look.
I watched one the other night. I literally watched it because she was in it, because I like her, and it was terrible. Well, it was fine. It was Nicole Kidman, this murder mystery thing. She kind of saves everything she's in. There's something very special about her, and I expect she's going to be very busy for a long, long time. I like her a lot.
That's very good. She looks amazing as well.
Yeah.
I always say the Irish are the best looking nation.
Do you?
And she's got two Irish people mixed together to make a pure, beautiful person. Yeah. Oh, there's something about them. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, she's gorgeous. And what's her full name? It's ridiculous. So, yeah, they have two girls.
Is she named after a hearing aid shop?
No, it's just like about 7 different... Oh, it's actually called Memphis Eve Sunny Day Iris Hewson. That's her full name. They then had another couple of kids, a good, 12 years apart, didn't they? They sort of had a second honeymoon and had another 2 kids. And one of the new ones, the son, he's in a band called Inhaler, they're doing quite well.
Are they?
Yeah, and he really disassociates himself with, you can't see pictures of them together, He's called Elijah Bob Patricius Guji Q Hewson. It's like, let's try and get all of our mates in.
Yeah, right.
And the poor kid has to live with that. The first kid was called Jordan Joy Iris Stillwater Hewson.
So both of his daughters have his mum's name as middle name.
Yeah,
Iris.
I know, this is what I mean. Idolising this mum that didn't even know her son was interested in singing.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, you're right. It's trying to hold on to it, isn't it? So, yeah, anyway, fashion-wise, you know how fashion and music always go together?
Yeah.
Didn't really influence you too much, did it, fashion? They just wear clothes.
Well,
They probably spend a fortune on them.
I think if you saw them without their faces, just their stage gear, you probably would guess who it was. Because of Bono's sunglasses, maybe.
Oh, yeah, the sunglasses is the only defining thing. But he reckons he was copying Elvis. Comeback special with his leathers. Well, it's just leathers. It could be anyone. But hey, I looked them up to see what they're doing now. Last year they had a Vegas residency.
Oh, really?
And major projection, and it's all like this pastiche of Elvis because they're in Vegas.
Some of their big tours, they really use that audio visual. They would, at the time that they did any tour, they would really use like the most current iteration of audiovisual stuff.
Yeah.
Especially with, is it the Lemon tour or the Zooropa tour? I can't remember, but it was all projections and artwork. I mean, it was a real multimedia experience. So
that's right.
Again, that's about evolving with the times and stuff. They do embrace everything.
Yes.
They're not staying in the past.
Yeah, in fact, I think they were a little bit ahead with the stage shows.
Yeah.
I was going to say clothes they didn't do, but sets they did. They really were groundbreaking in their epic stage designs. Yeah. This bloke, Willie Williams, they took.
Willie
Williams? Yeah, that's his name. He was with them. He's been with them 40 years.
Was he like the stage designer?
Yeah, and he directs their shows as well. Oh, yeah, it was the Zoo TV tour, and they actually got East German cars and hung them and TV screens, and it was like an anti-fascist rally. They're kind of creating an art installation when they do their shows.
Yes.
I always remember people talking about them, thinking I'd like to see them, but I wasn't mad enough about the music.
Right. Yeah. No, fair enough.
They're really cool. Yeah, I just Googled it and had a tour through all of their gigs right from the start and how they evolved. It's pretty fantastic. Amazing projections.
And again, like being, the artists that there are was something to say. They're also using those screens and projections to really show political iconography and stuff. They're not just being entertainers. They have a strong political stance behind everything, which again still gets them into trouble.
Yeah.
But I guess at least now they're playing arenas. They get to have security and stuff, whereas back in the day, him and Ali would leave a gig in their little car and be surrounded by people smashing the windows and stuff, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, we're running out of time already, but we should talk about Bono. We've largely focused on music and stuff, but by God, this man has been all around the world, meeting world leaders and being political. And the one thing that made me realise how authentic it was is actually quite early. I think in 1985, he says, I was in Cambodia for a month.
Yeah, right.
Doing plays and writing music to educate people about hygiene and stuff. I mean, this is really when U2 are really breaking through and up and coming. And he goes to spend a whole month there to help people in poverty.
With Ali.
Yeah. So it kind of made me think.
Yeah, he walks the walk.
Yeah, he really does. And it's not just something that's tagged on because it looks good.
No.
You know, because charity is a great PR vehicle, and it always had. Well, since Band Aid and Live Aid, famous people need their charity these days. But he literally, from the beginning, was going everywhere and educating himself, and then raising awareness of stuff. And he's always done it, and that's evolved to the point where he's hanging out with presidents and stuff now, and really having people's ears and pushing things like erasing national debt in poverty-stricken countries. And so he's
been hanging out with Zelensky in Ukraine a couple of years ago, you know, and he's actually going there. It's about a third of this book, I reckon, that is dedicated to all his political, social activism. And
you see, I think one of the ways that he's unfairly maligned in the press and why we all think, oh, Bono's a big head going around, is because of the way that's reported. You know, it's like, why is he doing this? He's a rock star. He should just stay singing songs in stadiums.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I was kind of swayed by that a bit. Think, oh, who does he think he is? But now through reading this book, it just makes complete sense.
Yeah, that is who he is.
Yeah, why wouldn't you do that if you could?
He's a Christian charity person who became a rock star. But that's who he actually is.
Yeah.
At the core of himself, that's his purpose in this life.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bono, that I misjudged you.
Yeah,
I like him a lot. It's funny because I've always really rated people like Sinead O'Connor, Madonna even, for their political stances and their social stances, and they would speak out about stuff when nobody else was talking about it. And for some reason, I kept thinking, oh, shut up, Bono. But now I realise that I should be revering him in the same way. He should have the respect that I have for these other artists.
Yeah, he should, actually. He should.
Okay, so, oh gosh, so we need to wrap up. Do you know what? They had so many more albums, so many more tours, and they remain on the top of their game. Oh, we didn't even talk about when Apple forced a U2 album upon us.
Yeah, he went into Steve Jobs' house.
Do you know what? Funnily enough, I went onto my iPad the other day because I haven't used it to listen to music for ages. And a song came on and I thought, what the heck is this? Oh no, it's that U2 album that was forced upon us. I still haven't deleted it.
Really?
It was such a weird thing. We should have been able to opt into it. But one day we all woke up and everybody owned a U2 album.
I totally missed that, not having an iPod. But it got downloaded onto every single person in the world's iPods for free. It's so interesting listening to talk of Steve Jobs before he was a billionaire. Just walking into his house, the doors are never locked, you know, and the family's inviting and they make a cup of tea. It's nice. But yeah, they were on it. They knew how to work the business side of it, you know, to get their own U2 iPods and stuff.
They did, but I have to say, I don't think in the long run, I don't think that was such a good thing for them to do. Because I tell you what, I don't know a single song on that album.
It definitely backfired.
Yeah, so in a way, that whole period of their artistic career got lost in a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Because everybody I don't think it was really ever played on the radio. So we don't know any of those songs as U2 songs. Obviously, if you're a fan, you know them.
No, it's true. But hey, it was new, so they were paving the way. The next band who might have thought of doing that definitely didn't do it.
Yeah, right. And actually, do you know what? They take risks. And
they did take risks.
Yeah, and part of taking risks is that you become massively famous, but also at the same time you fail a bit.
Yeah, it's true. And my other favourite story in this book is when he's hanging out with Pavarotti and Moderna to do some charity event, and Lady Di's there, and he's invited his dad because Pavarotti's his dad's hero, and he's like, do you want to meet Lady Di? He's like, why would I bloody want to meet Lady Di? I don't agree with the royals. And then she walks into the dressing room and his dad's like, oh, hello, quivering. And he goes, 800 years of repression defeated in 8 seconds. And he goes, if anyone asks me what's the point of the royal family, I tell them that.
Oh, good old Diana.
Genius.
Do you know what? The one thing I would say about this book is there's so many stories. Like, literally, we haven't touched the sides of
There's
this book.
tons
It's
of
so
stories.
Massive.
It's packed full.
Read it, but take your time reading it. Don't cram it all into 1 week.
Yeah.
But also, like, he's spending time with Frank Sinatra, Michael Hutchence.
Oh, Michael Hutchence. They were neighbours in France.
Yeah.
Oh, there's loads. There's so much. He gives us a good book, doesn't he, Bono?
Do you know what? Actually, that I want to talk about Michael Hutchence and stuff.
I know.
But we've run out of time. And we'll have to, Eddie, well, I'll talk to you about it in a minute.
But anyway.
And the Frank Sinatra, he even talks about that thing we read about in Frank Sinatra's daughter's book, where he went on stage at the Grammys and he just couldn't really remember what he was doing. It's just like, oh no, now I didn't realise Bono was there that night and he's at the side of the stage watching it. Oh God, Bono's like literally been everywhere and done everything.
Yeah. The tour of the Vatican with Quincy Jones and the Pope.
Yeah.
And they got the giggles. Quincy talks about that. There's so many crossovers. It's true. It's great. Yeah, I recommend this book.
Oh, I really recommend it. In fact, I would read it again now.
I recommend it, Richard. And you too.
Hey!
Does that work?
I do.
Does that work?
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Thrift Shop Biography. We love making this podcast and we're absolutely thrilled that so many of you are already listening. You could really help us out by leaving us a review somewhere, wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you could share us, tell your friends about us, or drop some links on social media. We have a Facebook page called Thrift Shop Biography, so make sure you come over there to hear about the episodes first and what else we're up to. Okay, see you next week. And if you're new here, there are loads more episodes now to go and listen in the back catalogue, so make sure you go and enjoy them. Okay, thank you very much.